When WordStar was released in 1978, it quickly became the world's most popular word processor. By 1983, Micropro, its creator, had become the biggest software company in the world. But just a decade later, the company would go bankrupt and WordStar would cease to exist. The sheer implosion of the giant that was WordStar involves an employee revolt, working with the enemy, and a series of hilariously bad decisions. This is the story of how the world's largest software company shot itself in the foot and didn't live to tell the story. Seymour Rubinstein was an employee of early microcomputer company IMSAI. He founded Micropro International Corporation in September 1978. Rubinstein's initial aim when he founded Micropro was to create a high-end database management system, but while at IMSAI, he knew from experience that the CPM market really needed a text editor. He figured since there was a market for text editors and that it would take way less time to build a text editor compared to a database management program, he might as well start by developing a text editor that could provide the company with a steady revenue stream. The new product, named WordStar, hit the market in 1978. The layout of WordStar was different to the conventional mnemonic layout of word processors of the time. Essentially, it used key-based commands instead of utilizing a mnemonic layout. Before WordStar, formatting text on computers meant specifying commands for the layout and design of the specific block of text, printing the document to see if it was indeed what you wanted. If not, you repeat the same process over and over again until the document looks the way you want it to. It was a painfully tedious process, but WordStar changed all of that. While using the word processor, you could accurately see line lengths and paragraph breaks without having to print out your document. By 1983, WordStar's success had made Micropro International the largest microcomputer software company in the world, with sales that year reaching $70 million. But at this point, trouble began brewing. Rubinstein got into a dispute with the WordStar development team, and depending on who's telling the story, they either quit or were fired. The departed programmers revolted and set up shop in an office not too far away from Micropro's headquarters, and proceeded to found a new company called NewStar, which published a WordStar clone called New Word. Because the development team quit just as WordStar had been due for an update, there was no team to update the software. Things were looking dire for the company until an unlikely savior entered the picture. AT&T had just begun its ill-fated foray into the PC industry with its line of UNIX-based computers. Before the launch of their computers, they needed to make sure that they would have popular applications that were compatible with them. So they reached out to Micropro and offered them money to create a version of WordStar that would run on their UNIX systems. Micropro, desperate for cash, agreed to port WordStar over to UNIX, but there was one major problem. Micropro lacked the capability to port WordStar to UNIX, but luckily for Rubinstein, he caught wind of a programmer that had written a basic clone version of WordStar that ran on UNIX systems. Rubinstein bought the program and hired the same programmer along with a small team of programmers to port the official WordStar to UNIX. After months of work, the team presented the final product to Rubinstein, and he was not impressed. The team had changed WordStar from its originally key-based command system to a mnemonic system. In addition to this, it had new features that the original WordStar didn't have, while simultaneously lacking features that the original WordStar came with. Micropro was desperate for a new version of WordStar. It had been 18 months since they launched version 3.3, and the market was beginning to buy newer word processors. So it was decided that the WordStar port would be launched as a new separate product called WordStar 2000 and would become the focus of the marketing and sales efforts of the company. WordStar 2000 was priced at $495 per copy. The original WordStar remained on the shelves because it was still selling strongly at the price point of $495. The release of WordStar 2000 created a near irreconcilable positioning conflict that pitted Micropro against itself. WordStar 2000 was launched as an entirely separate product, targeted at the exact same customer base as the original WordStar. This essentially pitted Micropro against itself, leaving any potential buyers confused and frustrated, and ultimately deciding on either WordStar 2000 or the original WordStar. The confusion caused by these two products caused internal issues within Micropro that created a serious fault line between the two WordStar teams, with each team seeing the other as redundant. As Micropro wrestled itself to the floor, it lost the lead in the word processing market, but just as it seemed as if Micropro had sealed its fate, it had one last chance to redeem itself and recapture its market dominance. Realizing that something was going catastrophically wrong, Micropro hired a new president, Leon Williams, and a management team in the hopes of changing its recent fortunes. The first thing Williams did was to make his way down the street to New Star and buy the company. Yes, that New Star. The New Star that was started by the revolting former development team of WordStar. Leon used New Star as the foundation of the long overdue upgrade for the original WordStar. The upgrade, which was WordStar 4.0, sold well even though it lacked features that other word processors had now come to have. The new management team decided to rename WordStar 2000 to WordStar Publisher due to the fact that WordStar 2000 had exceptional laser printing capabilities. They refocused their sales and marketing efforts of WordStar Publisher from the general word processor market to the more niche but lucrative market of authors and publishers. The new WordStar upgrade and the refocusing of WordStar 2000 were very successful strategies. On the back of the success of WordStar 4.0, Micropro immediately started working on the next upgrade of WordStar. Micropro knew that if it could launch WordStar 5.0 in a timely fashion with enough features, it could regain its lead in the word processor market. So there was extra emphasis to hurry along the development of WordStar 5.0 to have it ready in time. The intended release date was early 1988. When the testing phase came around, everything looked very promising. The new version had a raft of new features, but one flaw became apparent during the testing phase. The program did not yet have a print option, and that was due to the fact that it did not yet have a printer driver database. Back in the 80s, there was no standardized set of drivers like exists today on Windows and macOS. Back then, it was the jobs of software vendors to ensure that their software worked with as many printers as possible. This meant that software companies had to buy hundreds of printer brands and models and test the printing capability of their software, painfully writing custom drivers for hundreds of printers. But it was quite odd that WordStar 5.0 did not yet have a printer database. What made the omission of the database even more puzzling was that in 1985, a decision had been made at Micropro to base all future printing databases for other products within the company on the WordStar 2000 printer database. It was tested and debugged, and it was extensive. So why wasn't the database in WordStar 5.0? When the management team finally got a proper answer, it was worse than anyone could have ever imagined. The issue was pointer, as in hierarchical pointer, used in a hierarchical database. The WordStar 5.0 development team had decided to build a hierarchical database for the print drivers. WordStar 2000's print database was based on a relational database structure, a completely different paradigm. The WordStar 5.0 team had done this to save space, but deeper than the economical reason was the tribal element. It was no secret that back in the days of WordStar 3.3 and WordStar 2000, both development teams hated each other and each championed the version of WordStar they worked on. The WordStar 5.0 team made the stupid emotional decision to build their own database, which they thought would be superior to that of WordStar 2000. This was a bad move because Micropro didn't have the tools to convert the flat structure of a relational database to a hierarchical one. Porting the printed database to the new WordStar 5.0 would first require building a series of custom programs to accomplish the task, which would take months. Then the tools themselves would have to be tested for proper operations, which would take even more time. It had become very clear that due to its issues, there was no way WordStar 5.0 was going to meet its projected ship date or even come close to it. The WordStar 5.0 development team's decision to discard the company's existing printer technology delayed the critical 5.0 release for more than half a year. When the release did ship in late 1988, the new version was widely criticized for having a printed database about 1/3 the size of the previous WordStar products. Some originally planned features never made it onto the final version of WordStar because a lot of development effort was diverted away from feature development to the hierarchical database issue. Meaning in addition to having poor driver support, WordStar wasn't feature rich enough to be truly competitive with the very best word processors. This resulted in poor sales, which led to the subsequent mass firing of Micropro's executives. Micropro had just lost its chance to regain its footing in the market. The company would stagger on for several more years, relying on its steadily decreasing installed base of WordStar users, until finally it faded away in the early 1990s when it was subsumed in a merger and later shut down.